En primer lugar,
In first place,
desde el punto de vista de la visión patrimonial,
from the point of view of real estate and what the Iberdrola Corporation has as a point of view, we have to manage more than 160,000 assets of different kinds. Of those, 1,000 are work centers, about 900,000 square meters. The other assets are warehouses, for example, or etc. The first consequence is that we have to manage a very important volume and a very large diversity of information. And I propose to you that you do this thought experiment. Do you think that your company, maybe there are others from Iberdrola here, is there some area where there's a variety of information as in real estate? It has nothing to do with size or bank payrolls. It's about consolidating maps, judicial documents, legal documents. There's a large problem. Integrated real estate management and facility management, which would be a part of this. It's one of the most complex management you could have from the point of view of informational systems. This is a big problem for many colleagues, because in the globalization process, there's also uniformization process. So we all understand that we can have SAP, and no one can understand that something as large and designed by Orwell cannot be used for real estate management. And in my opinion, it's not good enough, because it has a financial objective, and real estate management is much more than just the economical and financial management of an asset. That's the first reason. It's not obvious or evident to manage with these information systems. You can also do it without them. Also, the pharaohs had real estate. But what's clear is that a volume of so many different assets with different legal support, with different use and different operational management can only be analyzed from the point of view of information, a consolidated informational management. And in my experience, many companies and many corporations have big holes in their inventory. It's not obvious to have a solid management of lease contracts. When you have 5 or 300, when there's 5, it doesn't matter, but if there's 380, it's a lot more complicated if you want to do an efficient management of economical or occupational management. So if someone wants to manage an asset from an integrated point of view, and from the point where you decide to invest or build and design, it's impossible to do this in a professional way if you don't have a good information system as support. Why? Because real estate management is more than just space management, which is also very important. Because space management, in the end, is people management. Because real estate management is also management of legal obligations. It's not the same in the United Kingdom as in Albacete, Spain, or in New York State. Without a support for management that's adequate for all of this, it's ridiculous to think that one can optimize a portfolio regardless of how many hours he puts into it. Because of this, I think it's certainly justified the necessity of working with a system like this. The second justification the implementation of corporate policy or corporate criteria. Obviously, the Taifa kingdoms are historical reality in Spain. But I see around the world that this concept is also present with Brazilians, Scottish, English people, or Americans. Everyone is very jealous and of their own store. That's what makes them not share information and have them under their strict and personal control. Someone wants to implement a global policy, not only in investment management or space management or maintenance criteria for a building. And if you don't have an information system, that would make you to have unlimited faith in the human race. Information system has to be the warranty of functional analysis and of processes that support the corporate ideas that we want to implement on the world. First, it's ideas, and then it's a software. But if the system support to the protocols and procedures and the criteria and standards, it's absolutely impossible to talk about a global asset management. There's maybe a lot of effort, but it's impossible to follow the protocols in terms of acquisitions and corporate development or implementation if there's not a reflection that may be followed to assure that things are being done in accordance to the way it has been previously defined. So in this way, I'm talking about all processes, about getting a meeting room and developing an acquisition process and implementation of standards in space use, open space, or private zones, of managing contracts, maintenance contracts, managing asset exploitation contracts. That's necessary to document and implement it and support it in the long term. Why? Because that's the only way that we can have efficiency control of our procedures that allows us to unite our management with the response capacity that we have, how much time and how much it costs, how much a reform can cost. Or, for example, a building in Edinburgh or Valencia, how we can reform it. We're in the kingdom of the wise. Here we're in the kingdom of the experts, but not of the managers. So that's the first battle that we must fight. After that, reporting, scorecard, it's all just almost irrelevant. The key is, in a challenge that my experience and my frustrations is the daily challenge. It's explaining to our teams that are managing our real estate, our engineers, our architects, or our biologists, that we have to work from Monday to Sunday with our information system. Our information system isn't the suit for going to church on Sunday. It's not just showing some numbers to the president or the CEO. You can work with a management system or without one. And I think it's the support for a management system. You can also do tables with Excel. Or if someone wants to have solvency and know the difference between the cost of the square meter or of an eolic park, and the core business of my company is to produce and distribute energy, solar energy. And it's very interesting, fascinating, the support of these wind energy parks. And it's 33,000 employees around the world who have to manage. Those are the reasons that we need an information system. Not just so we can have elegant graphs that we can take to the CEO's table or to a conference, but to be convinced that we're doing the things according to a plan with criteria, global criteria, that the man that works in Maine knows how to manage an application for real estate management the same way as someone who works in Toledo, Spain. Because even though we don't have legal unity or formal homogenization, and the difference between Massachusetts County or Toledo municipal unit, the way we manage the demands of our clients, and the way we develop the investment programs has to be homogeneous, because it's the only way to be efficient, or even to be able to work remotely, to be able to work for some processes in the United States from Spain. And it only will work if we have a common language. If we have a system that is capable of having different currencies and different languages, but has unique and singular concepts. It has to define what's a compromise, what's a right, and that everybody in the Atlantic axis, since our main projection is in the UK and Mexico and Brazil and the United States, that everybody do the things the same way. And this isn't stifling creativity. It's not a German concept. It's a criterion that if we want to be efficient, we can definitely apply. There's something that we've thought about often. Companies like mine, big corporations, have a problem when we try to compare ourselves. We can't really benchmark that easily because we're very large. And it's not easy to find similar references. These others can be just as large as us, but they have a smaller geographical diversity. So this lets us do internal contrasts and efficiency plans where there's a competition between maybe the management of the asset in Brazil or in Valencia. And that's something where the homogeneity of the business helps us a lot. For example, kilowatts are done the same way everywhere. Regulation is different, but production and distribution processes are the same. So we have to take advantage of this fact of working the same way all over the world, so that those assets that are the source of our products can have a management process that's professional and with information. I have a strong aversion not to literature, but to too much talk. The only way we can measure our management is with numbers on the table. And those numbers are only relevant if one can trust them, if they're trustworthy. And they are only trustworthy if they are based on a system that manages them according to our procedures. I don't know if this is something that I've been convinced for a long time. And it's an internal challenge for our own real estate teams. They're usually formed by very competent people with a lot of experience and professionality, but with little faith and little need of believing in information systems. And then, of course, the typical debates with our colleagues in human resources or in systems where they have other visions of big systems, and it's hard to convince them that we need specific systems that are supposed to talk for systems that are specialized in asset management, because it's impossible to manage complex assets like the ones I'm describing with general purpose systems, with economic or financial systems, because assets are much more than the net accountable value that they have. Thank you very much.